Welcome to Fearless Females, where ambition meets resilience. Meet your guide, Lorie Jones, president of Fidelis Wealth Advisors. Join her and remarkable women executives as they uncover the triumphs and transformative moments shaping extraordinary careers. Ready to be fearless? Let the journey begin.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you joining me again to hear another great story. Shout out to Fidelis Wealth Advisors. Thanks so much for being our sponsor. We appreciate it. Today, we're chatting with Shannon Marino. And I found it so interesting listening to her experience. But the thing that struck me out of her interview was when she was talking about how her first career in litigation started changing kind of who she was. You know, she started having to put some distance between herself and the really hard things that she was dealing with as a litigator. And so she noticed that experience was affecting her life and pivoted to a different career track. And I find it so interesting because there are times in our lives when our career really does. You can't really keep what you do separate from who you are. So if you're not finding joy in your journey, if you're not loving what you do, you might need to rethink where you're at because it affects every piece of your life. That's why I'm so grateful that I love what I do. But I think that that's an important piece, and Shannon kind of goes into that. So let's get started with Shannon. I'm super excited for you to hear her story. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We are here with Shannon Marino. She is an estate planning attorney, and I'm super excited. I had a chance to just chat with Shannon earlier, and I'm really excited for us to learn a little bit more about her journey. And I'll share a secret with you, Shannon. I always wanted to be a lawyer. When I was growing up, I did a mock trial in like middle school or something like that. And I always thought being a lawyer was great. And then I got to college and figured out what I couldn't keep my eyes open to read the law books. So I have the utmost respect for you guys because you do such a great job of doing those hard things. So we're going to start out. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate that.
Thank you. I'm honored and flattered that you invited me to join you. So I'm excited about this.
So the first question I always ask Shannon is, what is your favorite book? I am a bibliophile. I love books. I love everything about them. Give me your suggestions.
So I'm going to go with a book that is not well known. It is called A Land Remembered by Patrick Smith. I am a huge history person. I love all things history. I love learning about history, reading about individuals and what it was like for them to grow up in a totally different era of time. So A Land Remembered is actually near and dear to my heart. It's written by a Florida author. I'm from Florida, Central Florida area. And it's about a family. You follow through several generations of a family and their challenges in raising their kids and making a living and surviving really in the state of Florida in the 1700s, early 1800s.
That sounds so fascinating. History was my major in college. I didn't go back and get my finance until later. So I'm with you. I love all those stories. I love like getting inside their mind and just seeing what they saw. So that sounds fascinating. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get where you're at today? What made you want to be an estate planning attorney? Talk to me about that.
Sure. So throughout my experience during law school, I was so bent on becoming an estate planning attorney. I actually interned working with individuals with special needs and advocating while I was in law school for disability rights and disability benefits for individuals with special needs. I really found a passion in that type of work. And so I was absolutely convinced that that's what I was going to do. So much so that I did not do mock trial like you did because I thought, I'm absolutely not going to need that. Well, when you get out of law school, I actually had my first child, so my first daughter, about 3 months after I graduated law school. And it was time to make a living, and it was time to pay those student loans and put my degree to work. So I actually went into civil litigation and did all of the things that I convinced myself I would never do, which was do depositions, be in court, be in a very adversarial type situation. And I found actually that I really loved it, and I had a real passion for it. And I did that for roughly 8 years here in the Denver, Colorado area. Absolutely loved everything about it. It was exciting. It was exhilarating. It was all the things that you see on TV and then some. But throughout my tenure as that civil litigation attorney, I also had 2 more children, was feeling that pull of really wanting to open up my degree, do more with my degree, have a better connection with my clients on a different level, and also really have a better connection with myself. A lot of people don't realize that as attorneys, many times we really have to turn off emotions in order to handle certain cases and, tragic situations. Turning off the emotions and really turning off your own opinions comes at a price, in that you start to really kind of disconnect yourself from your work. And when you are working very, very long hours, 6 days a week, that disconnection from yourself really can become a disconnection from the world around you. When COVID hit, I really knew that I was ready for that next phase in my career. I was really ready for an opportunity to show up for my clients in a totally different way. And so I did tap back into that estate planning, kind of disabilities planning. Many of the cases that I had worked during my civil litigation time were made much, much worse by lack of estate planning. And so I took some of those lessons that I saw and that I learned through those really tragic situations and decided that I wanted to do something different and chart my own path as it relates to my legal career, the legal industry, estate planning in general, and really kind of do my part to bring the legal industry into the 2020s and no longer have the typical relationships that most attorneys have with their clients, as we've seen over the past generations handling of the legal industry.
Oh, that's interesting. So did you know from age 5 that you wanted to be a lawyer when you got to college? Is that what you wanted to do? Or
I did, actually. 3 of my parents, so my stepmother, my stepfather, and my father are all attorneys. So I say that I absolutely had to go to law school. Otherwise, I would never win an argument in my own household. So it was absolutely something I wanted to do. I did get delayed, and kind of had my doubts. So when I first went for my undergrad, kind of thought maybe this is not right for me, similar to what your thoughts were. But then I went and I got my master's in business. And one of the professors just randomly said to me, you really need to go to law school. And I had actually several professors over my university stay that had said that to me. And I thought, okay, maybe they see something and I should really pursue this and finally buckle down and get through those law school textbooks.
So the other thing you mentioned is that you were interested in kind of changing the way that traditional estate law was done. Like, what sort of things were you seeing that you want to have an impact on or maybe change?
Yeah, so what I commonly saw was that historically estate planning is really viewed as and planning who gets what when we pass away. But the reality is that we've gone through a lot of changes in society. Number one, medicine has changed, and we have incredible medical professionals and research facilities here in the U.S. and worldwide that have done a great job of extending out our lifespans, but haven't necessarily extended out the quality of life. So we are seeing incapacity planning that needs to be the top priority for most of us when it comes to estate planning. More modern approach to estate planning is planning for your life as well as the lives of your loved ones when you are with us, but maybe you are incapacitated, meaning you can't manage your own decisions, make your own decisions, and planning for the lives of your loved ones after you've passed away. And what does that look like? How do you make that happen? From a financial standpoint, but also from a passing on of life lessons and values and care and love for those loved ones, which is why actually your profession is so integral and essential in what I do, because we always want to make sure my clients are really protected from a financial standpoint through all stages of life, not just a passing on of the assets.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that really there is a give and take between our professions, because I'm so concerned making sure that our clients are financially secure, but we're running into that same issue where they are maybe not mentally, they're not all there, they're incapacitated or they're having some problems. And I don't want to see them getting taken advantage of and even when you get back to, having dealt with it with my grandparents, when you get back to that end of life decisions, like, how do you make decisions for your grandparents, especially if they haven't really told you what they think or what they feel? And you always think, oh, I've talked to grandma and grandpa, I know everything about them. When it comes to making those really hard decisions at the end of life, you haven't talked about that most of the time.
I'll tell you the second way that I've really approached estate planning in a more modern way is with our grandparents, our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, a lot of times we all lived in the same town, right? Like, it was multi-generational. You didn't leave your town. Y'all banked at, the bank that sat at the corner of First and Main. Everybody knew everybody's business. And so there wasn't really this as transient of a society. Another thing that I would frequently see is that family members would step in for the incapacitated individual, or maybe for the grandmother that's passed, and they have no idea where their assets are. They have no idea where they bank or who holds the loan on their car and things of that nature. So again, like, doing a complete inventory of the portfolio so that the family members know exactly what they have, can locate what they have. We're ensuring that portfolio is being monitored to cover the debts, to make sure that if there are minor children left behind, that those minor children are being cared for and being paid for and being financially supported in ways that the family really needs. So it's really an interesting time to be in the legal industry. We've just seen so many changes in our society as it relates to how we live, but also from Washington, D.C. I'm sure you know this. We've had more regulation changes and tax changes over the last 15 years than we had over the prior 50. Really having a team of trusted advisors that are watching over a family's position, whether it's, their assets or their medical needs or what have you, I find that to be really integral, and no longer should it be something for the ultra wealthy. This really needs to be for every family, the everyday family, so that they're being protected, their assets are protected, and their loved ones are protected.
Yeah, absolutely. We share a passion there. So I appreciate that. So if you could go back and look at it, what is the best investment you made in yourself? If you could say one thing, oh, I am so glad I really did that because it made a huge difference in where I am today, what would that be?
So this is a very unpopular answer, but I'm going to tell you my education. I always bet on myself, and whether that is taking that job with the firm that I'm not sure about, I'm not sure where it's going to go, or it is going to the night school and putting myself through, business school at night, or taking a chance on myself and putting myself through law school. I really find that the best investments are in yourself and taking that risk. Because if it is something that you are truly passionate about, you're going to make it work. You're going to make it happen. You're going to be successful, and you really control your destiny and what happens. And so I tell people all the time, invest in yourself. And if it means going to nursing school, even late 30s, because you're going to make it work and you're going to figure out a way. You're going to figure out a path to be successful.
I think that's super interesting. My sister, one time I was saying something about I needed to go back and get some more education, but I had young children and I'm like, I just don't know if I can do it. But I still need it. And she's like, Lorie, if you had done it a year ago when you talked to me, you would already be finished with this by now. And I thought about it. I'm like, I'm going to be 30. I'm going to be 35 anyway. I might as well have the credentials or the education or the training or the experience and still be at that age. I love that idea. You went to regular college, a master's in business, and then law school too.
And I don't regret any of it. And I know it can be expensive. There's going to be people that are watching this that say, Shannon, that's not realistic for every person. And I totally understand that. But I also am a firm believer in, if this is truly what you want to do, you're not hemming and hawing. This isn't a default because somebody told you to do it and you can't figure out what else to do. This is something that you really want to do. Do not waste time and jump in and do it and have confidence in yourself.
Yeah, fearless, right? Fearless. So have you ever gotten really bad advice, like the worst advice ever given? Did you take it or did you not? How did you learn something from it? How'd that work?
So I'm an attorney and there's lots of personalities and lots of ways that you can use your law degree and practice law. And I've seen skilled attorneys on all ends of the spectrum as it relates to super aggressive attorneys, kind and compassionate attorneys. I think the ones that make it on TV are kind of, the ones that are made for TV. And I'll tell you that I've been trained by a variety of attorneys. The attorneys that I found and the individuals in my profession that I found to be the most successful are the ones that have confidence in themselves, confidence in their skills, but do not have to be the loudest in the room. I think that there is something to be said for quiet confidence. And those individuals that are able to really quietly take in what's going on around them, quietly observe what's happening, and able to connect with the people in the room on a more authentic level are the ones that are going to be the most successful. I am embarrassed to say I haven't always behaved that way. And that is part of my path and my journey in my law practice. And while I've kind of taken on the demeanor of several different types of attorneys, the cases that I've been happiest with and the clients that I've connected the best with was when I was able to have more of that authentic connection with them rather than perhaps the showboating that sometimes comes along in the legal industry.
Yeah, the look at me. So the worst advice would be you have to be the shiniest thing in the room in order to make it work.
Exactly.
Well, that's good news for me because I'm quiet most of the time. So if you look back, I know that, there's regrets. We all have regrets. We all look at a situation and said, oh, goodness, I wish I would have done that differently. And you do learn something from every experience. But is there an experience you can look back on and knowing what you know now, if you could go back and do it, you would do it differently?
I would have started my own firm roughly 5 years prior than when I actually started it. So I'm about just shy of 3 years into my own law practice. And I have regrets that I doubted myself and delayed and going and writing my own path and starting my own firm.
You said that you really enjoyed being a litigation attorney and you enjoyed that, that piece and being in court. Was the fact that you were still enjoying it, was that holding you back, or you were scared of taking the next step?
I think a little bit of both. I really enjoyed it, but I could also see that it really had a time limit and that it was not going to be something that I wanted to do forever. It definitely took me away from my children because that's a huge time commitment in order to really advocate adequately for your clients. And so while on a professional level, I really enjoyed the work, I knew that it was not going to be my final chapter for my career. And so I certainly delayed until I kind of had an idea as to what my next path looked like. And, I think that was also a little bit out of fear, right? As a mother and you got 3 kids and you want to do right and you want to make the right choice from a professional standpoint, but also from a family standpoint. So I do think that I delayed a few years just out of, can I really do this? And is this the right path?
It's interesting how sometimes it's hard to see the answer. Sometimes, and looking back with the experience that you have now, yeah, it's gone really well. And you wish that you had done it a little bit sooner, but you didn't have that experience when you made the decision.
Right. And, I think COVID shook a lot of people. It gave us a lot of perspective. There were a lot of challenges that we all faced through the COVID period. And if anything, it showed me that we are all very resilient, and that if we have to make something work, we can, right? Like, I can be on a Zoom hearing while also have my children 6 feet away, so I can teach them while they're in their online class or what have you. And I think that was kind of a wake-up call of like, it's never going to be a perfect time. The circumstances are never going to perfectly align. I hear this all the time from my clients of like, we want to have children, but we're waiting for the perfect time. And I say, it's never going to be perfect. So, through COVID, that really opened my eyes a lot more of, we are resilient people. We are, as long as we have faith in ourselves and believe in ourselves, we can be successful. And moms are just, I believe that they're on another level, and they're the perfect figure it outers. And I really leaned on that resilience out of the COVID era to help bring me that clarity that I was looking for.
Cool. I like that. So if you could go back and talk to your younger self, your 20 or 21-year-old self, what would you tell her?
Believe it or not, I would tell my younger self to just relax. I think our generation, especially being raised in the South, it was very much a generation of figure it out. What are you going to do? What are you going to go to school for? What do you want to be when you grow up? That was the question, right? What do you want to be when you grow up? And I think what happens is that in that stress and in that pressure to figure it out and make the right choice, because this is going to be a forever choice, that my generation somewhat made decisions based on that pressure and rather than what their passion was. And so I would have probably told myself, just relax, like, it's going to be fine. You're going to figure it out. When is the right time to get married? You'll figure it out. When is the right time to have children? You'll figure it out. Career, if you're in it for 15 years and you decide you don't like it, switch. Life is long, and it is, while it's long, it's too short to be doing something that doesn't drive you, that doesn't give you passion. And so nowadays, when I'm working with families that have younger kids, I usually say, don't ask them what they want to be. Ask them, what do they see their future as? Is it living in the city? Is it living out in the country? What kind of quality of life do you want? What kind of lifestyle? And then you figure out really how to make that happen and what career path to choose.
Yeah, I love that. We get the same problem when we say, what do you want to do during retirement? It's that same sort of question. What do you want to be when you grow up? And it's a hard answer. Well, what do you see yourself doing? Or how does your life look? Or who do you see yourself surrounded with? Like that gives you a little bit more clarity for what you want. How old are your kids, Shannon?
I have a 12-year-old daughter, and then I have 2 boys that are 9 and 7. So we are very active right now.
Right in the thick of things. Absolutely. I have teenagers on the older end and young adults, and it seems like that pressure to what do you want to be or what do you want to do has really been amplified. It feels like even in this generation, because it's more along the lines of, if you don't play soccer and you're in the National Honor Society and you take meals to the poor and you go to an Ivy League school, then you're not going to be successful. And there's a lot of pressure put on that age group still, I think.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. I think as we walk through life, we're all going to wear different hats, and we're all going to walk different paths. And sometimes you're going to, make a left or a right. And I think the old way of thinking was, you better make sure that turn is the correct turn to make for you. I'm hoping that with the future generations, we're making them into more resilient and more adaptable individuals, more well-rounded individuals, so that, if you made a right-hand turn and it was a mistake, they have the confidence and the knowledge and the resilience to right the correction before it's too late, before they have too many regrets, and before they're really living a life that doesn't drive them and give them the passion that they deserve, that we all deserve.
I like that. What scared you the most when you started out, and does it still scare you?
Everything is scary, I think, the first time that you're doing it. My first job as a little baby attorney, that was absolutely scary and intimidating. Can I do this? Certainly starting my own law firm was a huge risk. But again, I just have the utmost confidence in myself and confidence in my loved ones really surrounding me and ensuring that I feel their support and their love. But everything is scary, especially anything from, am I making the right decision for my kid and his school? And is this the right teacher to, should I walk into this big meeting and what is this going to be like? And how am I going to show up in a way that is helpful and of service? I don't know that those feelings ever really go away. And I don't know that I really want them to go away. A certain level of discomfort tells me that I'm pushing myself, that I'm growing, and that I'm really challenging myself. And so I'm learning to be okay with the feeling of being afraid and being scared.
It's so interesting. One of the women I was just talking to was talking about a book that talked about you take fear along, but you make it sit in the back seat. There are like rules.
Exactly.
So I find that so interesting. So is there a way that you developed that kind of confidence in yourself? Did it just come from trying the situations or how did that self-confidence, how do you grow that?
How did that self-confidence come to be? I think it's just over time. I have a business coach that is constantly telling me to celebrate the small wins. We oftentimes look at the big wins. Did we get the big job? Did we get the big raise? Did we get the big promotion? But she's constantly telling me that if you're not paying attention, you're going to overlook the glimmers in your day, right? You got the good parking spot. Your cup of coffee was just really, really good that day. And in looking for those small wins throughout the day and looking for those small wins over my life, it really does build another level of not just gratitude and appreciation, but also another level of confidence. Like, look at what I did with that situation, or look at what I did with that client. And it may just be a blimp on my client's radar, or it may just be a blimp on my kid's day. But if you aren't careful, you're going to miss all of that. And we're not really living in a society that's going to remind you. So you really have to take those moments for yourself. And when you start to collect all of those little glimmers, it starts to make you realize just how fortunate and how amazing you are and how amazing the life that you are building is. And again, gives you that gratitude of the appreciation, but also that confidence.
I love that. I like that idea of kind of taking and noticing when you've done something well or when you've had a win, and maybe even tracking that so that you can go back in those times when you're discouraged and you don't think anything's going right and your children are telling you you're awful. Just read maybe through some of those great things that you do.
100%. So one of my business coaches put me onto a gratitude journal. And every day I have to list 3 things that happened that were good that day. And it could be a big win, or it could be, like I said, a small win where you get a good parking spot on a really snowy day. And that is absolutely helpful to put things into perspective.
I love that. I just love that idea. So what about challenges uniquely to you because you were a woman? Did you run into any of that in your career?
100%. 100%. When you asked me about something that I was regretful of and kind of the roles that I took on as an attorney, most of that was really dictated because the legal industry, especially when I was a baby attorney, is predominantly male. And so in order to get a seat at the table, you really had to take on that male persona and prove yourself to be of somewhat equal level in order to get a seat at the table. So while I was regretful in kind of taking on the male persona and in order to get to the table, I was also still very, very mindful that once I was at that table, I still had my boundaries, right? I had enough confidence and enough position and enough of a voice at that point to say, no, it's time for me to go home and have dinner with my kids. And so being a female in the legal industry has been incredibly difficult. I'm very much aware that I was passed over for promotions. I'm very much aware that I did not have equal pay. There's a little bit, and I'm sad to say there's a little bit of, you have to be okay with it. This is how it is. And to some degree, I think you need to be accepting of it in order to make those changes, in order to make your way into the club and then start to right those wrongs for the women that follow.
Oh, yeah, that's so interesting because we do all, lean on the examples and the ways that women before us have made changes in our different industries and making it a little bit better for those that come after us. So did you see that changing at all through the years that you've been in?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When I first started as a baby attorney, I want to say there were only a handful of female attorneys. And then with the firm that I was at, and then, over time, the females really rose to the top. And by the time I left, it was, the females were really kind of running the show. I believe the statistic is somewhere around 60% to 70% of law school students are female now. I believe that's the last statistic that I saw. So we're making progress. That's for sure.
Do you have any idea, and I can look this up, but do you have any idea what percentage of attorneys are women?
I don't at this point in time. Sad to say, a lot of them actually do have to take a step back from the profession in order to raise children and things of that nature. But I'm not aware of the current statistics.
That's so interesting. And that actually follows our industry as well, where we get women into finance, but they can't stay because they have caretaking responsibilities, be it children or parents or something like that. In fact, it happens through a lot of different industries. So that's interesting. So what, Shannon, are you the most proud of?
Oh, I am the most proud of being a mother. Are you kidding me? They are the greatest accomplishment. I measure being a mother to just about anything. I had to go in for surgery and the surgeons kept saying, how are you feeling? I said, I've birthed 3 kids. I've got this. Like, are you kidding me? Like, this is nothing. They are absolutely my pride and joy. They're absolutely my driving force. And they're actually a driving force for me with my connection with my clients and a constant reminder of, again, how are you going to financially care for yourself through different stages of life, but also any kiddos that are in the household, aging parents that are relying upon you. Constantly a reminder of what I do, why I do it, and why I'm really also so passionate about kind of writing my own path in the legal industry and making those changes, well, even if they're baby steps, so that my daughter has perhaps a little bit of a better world to be in. And I do feel like progress is being made, but we've still got a long way to go.
Yeah, and I think that's true everywhere. But I love that the idea of doing things for, because your daughter's coming up. And I've got sons too. So obviously we're gender neutral there. But I do think that it's important for girls to see that you can do things, that you can be successful and you can be a successful mother as well. And I think that's an important example to give to our kids.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up your boys because that, is another thing that I really focus on is, yes, I want to instill a level of confidence and ability in my daughter, but I also want my sons to see that their wives, their future wives or their future daughters really should be given equal opportunities and equal respect and trying to eliminate those gender roles as it relates to my boys.
Yeah, I love that. And as moms, we have a big impact on that, how we raise our sons and as wives, how our husbands deal with those situations too. So I think that's an interesting point to bring up. Well, any advice if you could talk to a young lady who's maybe just starting down this path that you have been navigating so successfully, any advice for her to help her be where you are to be successful like you?
I would advise her to listen to her inner voice. 9 times out of 10, our inner voice is going to steer us in the right direction. And whether that is choosing a partner, whether that is having a child, whether that is going to school, whether that is taking a job, really listening to the inner voice and shutting out the external noise that can be caused by society, I think is essential. And in making sure that they're able to write that path and kind of follow their own journey is what I find to be crucial, especially for the later years, because it usually does lead to financial independence. It usually does lead to more confidence and more happiness in the professional lives as well as their personal lives. And the thing that makes me the saddest is when I have somebody that I'm working with, it's the end of their life. And I believe the statistic is around 75% of the time. They usually say to me that their biggest regret is that they did not live life to their fullest, that they did not live up to their full capabilities, whether that be in their home, at work, in their personal relationships. And I find it to be the saddest because at that point, it's too late to really write those paths and to do anything about it. So I would tell a young individual, male or female, listen to that inner voice and really do what that inner voice is driving you to do.
So that when you get to the end, you don't have those regrets that you're looking back on. Gosh, I wish I had, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. It's a little bit of, the podcast is named Fearless Females, and it's a little bit, fearless isn't like, just doing anything because you're not scared. It kind of boils down to, you might be a little scared.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Shannon, so much for spending some time with us today. And I appreciate you sharing your journey and your experience. If listeners have questions, where do they find you at?
Yeah, so you can go to my website, www.sjmarinolaw.com. And that'll take you to some contact forms. You can send me a message. You can also jump on my calendar.
Perfect. Well, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.